And you misrepresented that. We never said it was disinformation. We said it was Russian influence operations, which is what they do. There's a big difference between influence operations. No, you don't know that.
Yes,
you don't know.
Comey knew.
The literature said it had all the hallmarks of.
Tonight's red-hot video, disgraced former CIA Director John Brennan completely loses it, snapping at a man who confronted him for signing the infamous letter in 2020, as we like to call it, the felonious 51, claiming that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, when in reality, it was in fact real. Okay, you guys, that finger pointing in the chest, getting in his face. Do you think, Mercy, that Brennan is feeling the heat? Does he know he could be the next indictment coming?
Yeah, I feel like his blood pressure continues to rise by the second. Look, he is boxed in. He knows that as we know with Jim Jordan and what they ended up doing, which is referring him to the Department of Justice for lying under oath, there's some serious questions as to his judgment in not only moving forward and including the Steele dossier as, quote unquote, their evidence to start this Russia hoax, along with James Comey, but also the letter, the 51 national security officials who basically lied. I mean, when they pushed forward this idea that it was Russian disinformation, he's trying to change the language into this Russian influence operations. I think he's feeling the heat, and I think there needs to be accountability for his, I think, failure in his decisions because he was so obsessed with taking down Donald Trump.
The tone of the memo, too, came out that it was basically that we believe this came from Russia, that this has Russia's hands all over it, which I don't know how you want to boil it down, but that's what it said. And then, Chris, I was going to ask you specifically, Mercy mentioned, I think it was uncovered by Tulsi Gabbard, some of the information that's come out about what Clapper did. And one of them was basically pressuring someone to act as a team sport was the lingo, and compromise normal modalities in terms of using the dossier in over what the intelligence community assessment said. I mean, that in of itself seems like an abuse of power. I could see that being a charge potentially as we're looking at more and more things coming down. Do you think he's going to be, getting a mugshot like John Bolton or something, in the future?
Well, I will hope and pray that he ends up, living up to his name, which is Penitentiary Face. Of course, he's been known as Penitentiary Face since he was a small child, even before he voted for the Communist Party candidate for President of the United States, Gus Hall, which he actually did. And what they said, the actual language, if I remember this correctly, from the Felonious 51 letter, was that the reporting in the New York Post had all the earmarks of Russian disinformation.
Exactly.
Had all the earmarks, I think it was, of Russian disinformation. And of course, it had nothing of the kind. I actually covered the intelligence community at CIA and for a decade, and thankfully never encountered him anywhere. But they ran an information operation against the American people, trying to undermine legitimate journalism and tamper with our presidential election. This is what we pay them to do in third world hellhole countries, to throw the presidential elections here. And what John Brennan and the other 50 creeps did is they signed on to this letter, which was an information operation run against the American people, tampering in our presidential election, and it worked. Joe Biden won.
By the way, I would say that when I heard there was a video of someone getting up in John Brennan's face and then John Brennan blowing a stack, I just assumed that Chris was actually the guy in that video. And I thought, he doesn't look that much like Chris Plant. And I think, honestly, it's a little apples to oranges here. On some level, I do like seeing our former spook intel people absolutely blow their stacks. I wish they did that, as Chris noted, at third world beep hole countries and not at Americans. But it is a little apples to oranges what you're seeing with John Brennan trying to have a coup in America and deceive the American people. And Tulsi Gabbard, who you were mentioning, was just visiting our ally Israel as they are still trying to have the Hamas terrorist barbaric monsters implement their side of this peace deal that they're, of course, flagrantly violating every day. I like having our intel people side with our allies and not against the American people, which is exactly what John Brennan and his 50 conspirators did.
And I'd like to see him held accountable, and that's the correct word,
exactly.
held accountability. Is what we're talking. I want to see him punished for personal reasons, just because I think he's a creep. But he violated the law all over the place, in addition to tampering with our presidential election.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news
for real people.